What is feminism? Feminism is a philosophical, social, and political movement. Its main feature is the struggle for gender equality, revealing, among other things, a greater participation of women in society. Origin of the movement. The movement started in the 19th century, and one of the biggest influences for this movement was the French Revolution. The history of the feminism is divided in three waves. First wave. The first feminist wave happened in the period between the 19th and the 20th century. At this time, the main causes defended by the movement were linked to political rights and women's freedom. It was in the first feminist wave that the suffragist movement for the women's right to vote appeared. They wanted the right to vote, to study, and to have better working conditions. Second wave. The second wave of feminism took place in the period between the 60s and 90s. During this period, the quest for social equality and equal rights intensified, and women began to question all forms of submission and inequality they faced. It was also in the second wave that the idea of collectivity, the first of the union of women as a movement capable of provoking change in society, emerged. This happened because women started to realize that there was something that united them. They had all been somehow overwhelmed by the fact that they were women. Third wave. This is what has been produced from the 19th to the present, led by American black feminists, some followed by Latin Americans and Easters. It brought variety to the movement by recognizing previous omissions, incorporating the diverse realities that affect different people. Another contribution of this phase of feminism is the understanding that behaviors and oppression are the results of social constructions. Thus, they can and should be discussed and deconstructed. Historical claims and achievements. During each wave, many claims were made. Some of them are 1791, in the context of the French Revolution, the Declaration of the Rights of Women and Citizens was published, which guarantees a correspondence between women and men, written by Olympe de Gouges. 1910, creation of International Women's Day, remembered on March 8 of every year. 1918, publication of the law that completed the right to vote of English women, a law of representation of the people. 1948, publication of the Inter-American Convention on the Granting of Civil Rights to Women. 1951, the International Labour Organization published a convention number 100, which established the obligation of equal pay for men and women. 1953, publication of the Convention on the Political Rights of Women. 1962, the Civil Code withdrew those who were submitted as married women to the work permit for home or to travel. 1975, the UN indicated March 8 as the International Women's Day. 1993, a Declaration and Program of Human Rights Action. Historical importance. Feminism was and still is a movement that stimulates change in society. We are still far from an equal society between men and women, but thanks to this movement, women can have the opportunity to be part of society and to have rights that allow them to do so. It is a movement of extreme importance, and it has revolutionized the way of thinking about women and everything they are capable of doing.
The first records of the feminist movement in Brazil happened in the 19th century. During the Imperial, the right to feminine education was recognized. In this field, the Potiguar writer Nízia Floresta Augusta is considered the precursor of Brazilian feminism, for she founded the first school for girls in Rio Grande do Sul and later in Rio de Janeiro. Requests for the right to vote, as in the United States and England, also emerged. With the advent of the Republic, the feminist movement in Brazil becomes broader. The new regime does not grant the right to vote to women, and does not facilitate access to the labor market for middle-class or rich white women. Due to the pressures of the feminist movements, the Brazilian once obtained voting right in 1932. But it was only since the 1960s that Brazilian feminism began to gain the form it has today. The 1960s are marked by sexual liberation, the emergence of the contraceptive pill, and civil rights movements. The feminist movement Brazil followed the demands of the new millennium with the inclusion of the new themes in its agenda, such as sexual and racial diversity, and the questioning of maternity as an obligation. In Brazil, the struggle for the eradication of domestic violence, greater political representation, the right to natural childbirth, breastfeeding in public places, the right to aborting, and the end of a culture that places women and submissive to men continues. The women's movement in Santa Catarina achieved a good visibility after the first Encontro Estadual de Mulheres, which happened in Itajaí on October 19, 1980. The central themes of the meeting were women and work, women and health, women and society. Last year, an important international march happened in Florianópolis. This demonstration was marked by the great number of women that participated. This walk approached themes as patterns such as violence, gender and sexuality prejudice, feminicide, the right to safe and free aborting, and social inequality between men and women. An example of feminism in Joinville is the Coletivo Mulher na Madrugada, which participates of a campaign that fights harassment in public transport. The main objective of the group is to discuss gender issues and draw attention to harassment at other places of the city, not only the bus. To Coletivo Mulher na Madrugada, the social movements from the city need to unite, for there still is a misconception of feminism in the city. Joinville was the first city of the state to have a feminist and LGBT law firm, opened in July of 2017 by the lawyer Julia Melim Borges Eleutério. To her, feminism has a role of making women aware of the quest for empowerment, autonomy, and respect. She also thinks that, with her office, she can contribute to the formation of a more supportive and fair country.
Feminism and the fight against harassment. The EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, has defined sexual harassment in its guidelines as unwelcome sexual advances and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. Unwelcome behavior is the critical word. Sexual conduct is unwelcome whenever the person subject to it considers it unwelcome. Dealing with sexual harassment became to women a must-do, when clearly it should not. The episodes happen at work, school, even at home, and the number of cases are uncountable, for many women do not report them. The lack of reports has a reason. Usually, the actions come with a hidden threat of being fired, failed, or suffer from physical violence. Also, when a woman decides to say something about it, she comes across a few questions like, "Have you even said no?" Nowadays, a huge amount of policies are being made in order to stop or at least decrease the number of cases. The United Nations takes an inflexible stance on sexual abuse, a zero-tolerance policy for infractions and condemning rape laws that require a woman to show injuries to prove that she did not consent. However, in a recent case, UN itself has failed in dealing with a sexual assault report in one of its agencies. As reported by the New York Times, the case files read like a manual in how not to investigate a sexual assault.
Sexual harassment in Brazil. A research done with 1,427 women showed that the sexual harassment affects 42% of the female population. The harassment happens in several ways. The number of cases changes according to location, age, skin color, schooling, and family income. Location: 29% on the streets, 22% public transport, 15% at work, 10% at school, 6% at home. Age: 56% of the women already were victims, 16 to 24. 50% 25 to 34, 45% 35 to 44, 34% 45 to 59, 24% more 60 years old. Skin color: 49% for Asians, 46% for Black, 45% for mixed race, 40% for white, and 34% for indigenous. Schooling. Among the women with more schooling, the harassment rates are higher. About 57% of the women interviewed with higher education suffered for harassment. Family income. Women in upper classes are the main victims, about 58%. However, if we think about home harassment, the group of lower economic class is the most affected. Sexual harassment and the law. Harassment can be considered a crime according to the aggressor action. Sexual harassment, when constraints and threats happen in order to obtain sexual favors. Indecent offense, it is verbal harassment, when someone says unpleasant things or makes threats. Rape, touch intimate parts without consent and other sexual actions. Obscene act, sexual actions in public place, for example, to show intimate parts, to constrain or threaten someone. Consequences. The harassment can cause many problems in the victim's life. Some of them are anxiety, depression, loss or weight gain, headaches, stress, and sleep disorders. What to do in harassment cases? A lot of actions can be taken because the cases are different and the victims can make different decisions. However, if the victims wish to report immediately, they must search for the nearest police department and identify the aggressor. Also, if you need help, you can call 180 Women Service Center.
Conclusion. Feminists have been working, among other things, to ensure protection to women from sexual assault and harassment. Unfortunately, this old-time issue will not change so fast. As much as laws are being changed to work against these kinds of situations, a global change of mind is required if we really want to guarantee gender equality.